You know, after all these years of driving, you start to believe you've seen it all. Every late-night pickup, every early morning rush, every sigh, every hurried goodbye in the back seat. They say a bartender hears all the secrets, but I'd argue a man behind the wheel of a black sedan hears a whole lot more. My name is Arthur, and this is my life. 20 years spent navigating the shadows of this city. Most rides blur together, a destination here, a silent tip there. But then, there are the ones that stick to your soul like old road tar, the ones you can't wipe clean. This was one of those nights. It was just past 2 a.m., the kind of hour where the city finally breathes out. My shift was ending. I was tired, my back a little stiff. The app buzzed. A pickup on Elm Street, a short run over to the industrial side of town. The pin was right outside one of those renovated warehouse districts. Expensive apartments tucked behind brick walls. I pulled up, the streetlights casting long, lonely streaks on the wet asphalt. The passenger was already waiting, pacing the curb. He looked young, maybe late 20s, dressed in clothes that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. But it wasn't the clothes that caught my attention. It was the way he moved, fast, jerky, like a cornered animal trying to look calm. He yanked the rear door open, not bothering with a polite greeting. He just slid in, the sudden change in atmosphere making my neck prickle. The air in the car thickened immediately. He smelled faintly of expensive cologne, overlaid with something sharp and metallic. Maybe sweat, maybe something else. He didn't look at me, just stared straight ahead through the windshield. "Just drive," he mumbled, his voice gravelly, dry. "To the address on the app. And please, quickly." I nodded, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. "Keep it professional, Arthur. Just another nervous young man." I eased the car away from the curb. For the first few blocks, the silence was heavy, almost suffocating. It was the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels full of unsaid things, vibrating with tension. I tried to break it just to lighten the mood. "Rough night?" I asked gently, glancing in the rearview mirror. He flinched. Not a jump, but a tiny, involuntary twitch of his shoulder. "Don't," he said, his tone flat and warning. "Just drive, please." The please was automatic, a habit from his expensive upbringing, but the command was absolute. I respected it. I turned up the soft classical music I usually play, Bach, something calming, but the tension in the back seat ate through it. I watched him in the mirror. His eyes were wide, focused on the road behind us, his breathing shallow. He kept shifting, his hands balled into fists, resting on his knees. It looked like he was expecting something to follow us. Is this a breakup? A bad business deal? The rational side of my brain was working hard to label the fear and dismiss it, but the instincts I've honed over 2 decades were screaming. This was more than stress. We hit the highway entrance, and I merged into the thin traffic. As we accelerated, I noticed a tiny detail. The cuff of his white shirt was slightly torn, right near the wrist, and there was a dark smudge on the pristine fabric. It was nothing definite, but in that sterile, contained environment, every small imperfection felt huge. The young man was clearly fighting a war inside his own head, and I was unknowingly driving the getaway car. Then, about halfway through the ride, the tension became unbearable. We were passing under a massive, low-hanging bridge, the darkness momentary and deep. As we emerged back into the intermittent light of the street lamps, he suddenly moved. He lunged forward, his head nearly hitting the back of my seat. "Stop the car!" he yelled, his voice cracking, not with anger, but with pure, unadulterated terror. The sudden shift in volume and intensity made me jump, and my foot instinctively lifted off the accelerator. "Stop the car now, I'm serious! Pull over!" His command was so forceful, so raw, that it pierced through my professional composure. I glanced sharply into the rearview mirror, trying to find whatever it was that had broken his facade. My hands, veterans of countless stressful maneuvers, started to tremble. A deep, unsettling vibration that I hadn't felt since I was a rookie driver 20 years ago. I hadn't even stopped yet, but the fear in his voice had already infected me. I knew, with the cold certainty that settles in your gut before true danger, that whatever I was about to see was going to change the rest of this ride entirely. I began signaling, looking for the nearest pull-off, my heart hammering against my ribs, anticipating the nightmare he was witnessing. What did he see? I needed to know, but I was terrified to look away from the road for too long. My trembling hands struggled to keep the wheels straight as I prepared to obey his desperate order. I slammed on the brakes, the tires squealing a brief, mournful sound against the slick highway shoulder. The sudden stop threw the young man forward slightly, but he didn't seem to notice. His whole body was rigid, pressed against the seatbelt, still staring out the back window. The silence that followed the screeching stop was 10 times heavier than the silence on the road. The sound of my own quick, shallow breaths filled the sedan. I put the car in park, turning the key just enough to cut the engine but keep the hazard lights flashing, a desperate, futile warning to the other ghosts on the highway. "What is it? What's going on?" I finally managed, my voice a dry croak. I didn't dare look back again. My eyes were fixed on the rearview mirror, searching, but all I saw was the fading red of taillights in the distance and the dull silver guardrail of the highway median. Nothing unusual, nothing that warranted that scream. He didn't answer right away. He just took one huge, gasping breath, like a man who'd just broken the surface after nearly drowning. Then, slowly, painfully, he turned his head and looked at me. This was the first time I truly saw his face. It was the face of absolute terror, stripped bare of any pretense or wealth. His eyes were bloodshot and wet, but he wasn't crying. He was simply broken. Sweat plastered his expensive hair to his forehead. "The car behind us," he whispered, his voice trembling so badly it was barely audible. "The black sedan. You didn't see it." I shook my head, my own fear starting to mingle with a deep, cold confusion. "No, son. There was traffic, but nothing close." "What about it?" He closed his eyes tightly, pressing his fingers to his temples. "It wasn't traffic, Arthur. They were following me. They have been following me since I left the building." He opened his eyes, and now the terror was replaced by a frantic, cold logic, which honestly scared me more. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a thick wad of cash, $100 bills, enough to choke a small horse. He thrust it into the front seat, scattering a few bills on the dash. "Take this," he said, his voice regaining a desperate edge of authority. "This is yours, every cent. But you have to listen to me. I need you to understand. I just need a few minutes of your time. Then you can leave, and you can forget you ever saw me." My professional skepticism flared up. This was the kind of money that usually meant trouble, the kind of trouble I, an old man trying to make a living, wanted no part of. "Look, I don't want your money. I just want to know what's happening. If you're in danger, we need to call the police." He scoffed, a dry, bitter sound. "The police? No, they won't help me now. This is complicated. It's my fault, all of it." He leaned back against the headrest, suddenly exhausted, his entire body slumping. The energy that had fueled his outburst was gone, leaving him hollow. This transition from frantic fear to resigned despair was a sharp, emotional drop, a deliberate slowing trigger for the listener. "I was stupid," he began, staring blankly out the window at the flashing hazard lights. "Incredibly, arrogantly stupid. My name is Ethan. I work in finance, specifically in proprietary trading. You know, making big bets with other people's money." He let out a humorless laugh. "I thought I was smarter than the system. I thought I had found the loophole, the weakness in the armor." He hesitated, rubbing the dark smudge on his sleeve with a nervous finger. The truth, I realized, was fighting its way out of him. A few weeks ago, I made a trade, a massive, off-the-books trade. It wasn't just the firm's money, Arthur, it was their money. People you never cross. People who don't use banks, don't use contracts. They just use muscle and fear. I thought I could make a quick fortune, cover my tracks, and disappear before anyone noticed. The chill I felt now wasn't from the night air. It was from the realization of who he was talking about. This wasn't a bad business deal. This was a collision with the criminal underworld. The metallic smell I noticed earlier suddenly took on a sinister new meaning. The nervous pacing, the frantic eyes, it all clicked into place. My hands, still resting lightly on the wheel, stopped trembling, replaced by a cold steadiness, the instinct of survival taking over. The emotional intensity was starting to climb again, slowly, deliberately. I lost it all, Ethan continued, his voice barely above a whisper, the memory clearly agonizing. Every single dime of their investment. Millions. I tried to pay them back with another gamble, which only deepened the hole. Tonight, they came for me. They cornered me in my apartment, not to hurt me, not yet. They wanted the account codes, the access, anything I could leverage to get their money back. He paused, a look of profound, sickening regret washing over his face. I gave them nothing. I told them it was gone. They didn't like that answer. That dark smudge on your shirt, Arthur. It's not wine. It's... He trailed off, unable to finish the thought. I barely escaped. I jumped into your car because you were the first thing I saw. And they were right behind me. That black sedan was them, I swear to God. And now I've put you in danger. I looked at the crumpled cash on my seat, the blood money, and then back at Ethan's desperate eyes. The car was dead still, illuminated only by the frantic rhythm of the hazard lights. I was no longer a rideshare driver. I was an accomplice, suddenly entangled in a life-and-death chase fueled by greed and poor judgment. The fear was now mutual, a shared cold stone in the pit of our stomachs. I needed to move. I needed a plan. A cold, heavy knot settled in my chest, squeezing the air out of my lungs. I looked at the young man, Ethan, who was now just a shell of a frightened boy, and then at the cash scattered across my dashboard. Millions lost. The kind of money that turns men into monsters. And I, Arthur, an old man hoping to finish his shift and get a decent night's sleep, was now sitting next to him, parked on the side of a lonely highway. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. I was compromised. His problem was now mine, a sudden, terrifying co-ownership. You saw them, I repeated, not as a question, but as a way to let the reality sink in. A black sedan. Did they see you get into my car? Ethan shook his head vehemently. I don't think so. It was dark, and I ran fast. They were busy inside, trashing the place, trying to find my ledger. I took the fire escape, but they know where I live, and they know I have nowhere else to go. He paused, his gaze drifting to the silent highway stretching behind us. They're methodical, Arthur. They won't stop. The fact that we haven't seen them for 5 minutes means they're circling, covering the exits, or maybe they have someone else waiting up ahead. The silence that followed was charged, crackling with the possibilities of violence and pursuit. This was the moment of decision, the emotional peak where logic battles survival. I could call the police, dump the problem, and try to explain away the cash. But Ethan was right. These weren't simple thugs. These were organized people who would see a police report as a complication, not a solution, and my involvement as betrayal. They wouldn't forget my face or my car. My simple life was already over the moment he stepped inside. I took a deep breath, the decision hardening in my gut. I reached across the seat and shoved the wadded cash back toward Ethan. Keep your money, I said, my voice steady, stripped of its earlier tremor. The fear hadn't vanished, but it had morphed into a cold, determined focus. I'm not doing this for money, son. If they're looking for you and we're sitting here like two ducks, we're done. I have a granddaughter to see grow up. I'm not going out like this. The look of profound, stunned gratitude on Ethan's face was almost as devastating as his earlier scream. He clearly expected me to kick him out. Arthur, Save it. I cut him off sharply, starting the engine. The sound of the idling car felt deafeningly loud. Tell me one thing and be honest. Did they hurt anyone else? Was anyone else involved in your escape? No, he whispered, relief evident in his voice. Just me. I was alone. Good. Then we have one priority. Disappear. This car is registered. We can't stay on the main roads. We need to go dark. I pulled the car back onto the highway, not speeding, but driving with a sudden tense purpose. I watched the rearview mirror like a hawk, scanning every vehicle that approached. The emotional trigger was now climbing sharply, the acceleration from resignation to active flight. I drove for another 10 miles, keeping pace with traffic, acting normal. But inside, I was mapping out the old city, the forgotten routes, the places the navigation apps ignore. Listen to me, Ethan. You need to keep looking, but not wildly. Look for the black sedan. If you see it, tell me immediately. Don't wait. And tell me about the people. Are they distinguishable? Tattoos, anything? He took another breath, forcing himself to focus. Two of them, big men. One had a silver ring, thick on his index finger. The other had a deep scar above his left eyebrow. They speak with an accent. Something Slavic, maybe Russian. Russian, millions, finance. The pieces locked together in a terrifying puzzle. I nodded grimly. Okay, we're getting off here. I'm taking the old state road. No cameras, no heavy traffic, but it's dark, and the road is rough. I took the next exit, a forgotten narrow ramp leading into the older wooded parts of the county. The trees immediately swallowed the meager light of the highway. The pavement quickly gave way to cracked, uneven asphalt. The car bumped and jostled, the rhythm a stark contrast to the smooth hum of the highway. This was a physical deceleration, but an emotional acceleration. We were now fully committed to the escape. We need a drop-off point, I muttered, thinking aloud. A place where you can blend in, where you can disappear for a few days, maybe get a bus or train out of state. I drove past dilapidated farmhouses and dark, empty fields. The silence was back, but now it was the silence of two people intensely focused on survival. Suddenly, Ethan leaned forward again, gripping the back of my seat. Not with terror this time, but with a cold, desperate idea. Arthur, I have a place. An old family cabin deep in the mountains, 3 hours north. It's remote. No cell service, no registered address. My grandfather built it. No one knows about it. I weighed the risk instantly. 3 hours of driving, mostly on back roads, was a huge gamble. But a mountain cabin, truly isolated, was the only place these people wouldn't look first. The alternative was a city drop-off, a crowded bus station, a guaranteed ambush. Can you get us directions, or is it on a map? No maps, Ethan confirmed, a flicker of hope in his eyes. But I remember the turns. I can guide you. It's our only chance, Arthur, please. I looked into the dark woods flashing past the headlights. The black sedan could be anywhere. We were out of time. I pressed the gas pedal down, committing fully to the long, desperate ride north. All right, Ethan, start talking. Every turn, every landmark. We're not stopping until the sun comes up. The fear was gone, replaced by the grim determination of a man fighting for a life he almost lost. A life that now included the frantic young man in my back seat. The next hour was a blur of darkness and intense focus. Ethan, having found a specific mission guiding me, had settled into a grim sort of competence. He was my navigator through the labyrinth of forgotten county roads, the ones that predate GPS and rely on moss on the north side of the trees. He directed me with sharp, low instructions. Left at the mailbox with the faded flag. Stay straight past the old water tower. Slow, Arthur. The pavement ends here. Each direction was a step deeper into the wilderness and further away from the city's predatory glare. I drove meticulously, keeping my speed just high enough to make ground, but low enough to handle the treacherous, winding roads. My eyes constantly flickered between the road ahead and the rear-view mirror. The paranoia was a living thing in the car, a third passenger breathing down my neck. Every set of headlights that appeared, even miles behind us, sent a jolt of icy adrenaline through me. I kept expecting to see the silhouette of a black sedan, headlights blazing, closing the gap with murderous intent. This sustained, low-level anxiety was the current emotional plateau, a slow burn of fear. That turn, Arthur. The next one. It looks like a private driveway, but it's the way to the ridge, Ethan instructed, his voice flat with fatigue, yet still sharp. He hadn't moved much. He was like a statue, frozen in the posture of high alert. We turned onto what could barely be called a road, more like two parallel tire tracks worn into the thick mud, framed by towering, silent pines. The branches scraped against the roof and the sides of the car, sounding like skeletal fingers dragging across metal. I had to put the old sedan into a lower gear, the engine groaning under the strain. This was the point of no return. If they found us here, there would be no witnesses, no escape route. The emotional trigger descended, settling into a deep, primal fear, the fear of isolation. "Tell me something, Ethan," I said, needing to break the suffocating silence, needing to keep his mind and mine away from the shadows dancing outside the window. Why did you do it? Risking everything for one big gamble. He didn't flinch. He seemed almost relieved to talk about something other than the immediate pursuit. Arrogance. Pure, unadulterated arrogance. I grew up poor, Arthur. Really poor. I worked myself to the bone to get into the right schools, the right firms. But once you're there, you realize the system isn't about hard work. It's about connections, about that extra edge. He sighed, a sound heavy with regret. I wanted to buy my way out of fear. The fear of being poor again. The fear of failing my mother. I convinced myself I was entitled to take the shortcut. His confession was quiet, mundane, a stark contrast to the life or death drama unfolding around us. This moment of vulnerability was the emotional deceleration I was looking for, a brief drop in speed to recharge the tension. And the millions you lost? I pressed gently. It wasn't just profit I was chasing. It was the principle. The people who gave me that money, they operate outside the law, exploiting the weak. I told myself I was stealing from thieves. I was going to leverage their money, make a fortune, return their principal to them, and then use the profit to start a foundation, clean, legitimate. He gave another bitter laugh. I was a fool, a megalomaniac with a savior complex. They smelled the weakness in my strategy and they destroyed me. And now they are trying to destroy you too. The guilt in his voice was raw and genuine. It was the only apology I needed. We were two strangers bound by a disaster of his making. But in that moment, under the cover of the silent forest, we were just two men trying to survive the night. I drove on, the fatigue in my arms and shoulders becoming a leaden ache. The sky was still the black of pitch, but somewhere, hours away, the sun was preparing to rise. How much longer, Ethan? My gas tank isn't infinite. Not far now, he promised. We're almost on the final climb. There's a gravel road on the left, right where the big rock formation is. You can't miss it. It's unmarked. Sure enough, a moment later, the headlights illuminated a massive, moss-covered granite outcropping. Just past it, a narrow, nearly invisible track veered off the main dirt road. I signaled, though there was no one to signal to, and wrestled the heavy car onto the final, brutal stretch. The track was steep and littered with stones. The emotional tension spiked again. The final sprint, the last hurdle before imagined safety. The cabin is just over the crest, Ethan murmured, his voice now ragged with relief and exhaustion. It's small, primitive, but it has a fireplace and a lock on the door. As we crawled up the final slope, I risked a final glance into the rearview mirror. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the road behind us was completely empty. Nothing but the pale light of our own reversed beams reflecting off the dust we'd kicked up. But the relief was fleeting. Just because they weren't behind us didn't mean they weren't waiting. They were professionals. They could have simply bypassed us on the main road and set up an ambush at the cabin. The rising dread was a testament to the sophistication of his pursuers. The sanctuary might be the trap. I gripped the wheel, my knuckles white, preparing for the very real possibility that our nightmare was just about to begin. We finally crested the ridge, and there it was. A small, sturdy cabin nestled in a tiny clearing, surrounded by a thick, protective wall of silent pines. It was exactly as Ethan had described, primitive, isolated, and completely dark. The sudden, forced tranquility of the place was unnerving after the frantic fear of the drive. I stopped the car about 50 feet from the front porch, cutting the engine immediately. The abrupt silence was jarring. The only sound was the clicking of the cooling engine metal and the wind sighing softly through the trees. "We made it," Ethan whispered, the words heavy with exhausted relief. He didn't wait for me to reply, scrambling out of the back seat and practically falling onto the damp, needle-covered ground. I followed him, my legs stiff and aching from the continuous tension. I stretched, my eyes constantly scanning the tree line, looking for any sign of movement, any misplaced shadow. The air here was different, sharp, cold, and carrying the clean scent of pine and damp earth. Ethan fumbled with a loose stone beneath the porch steps, retrieving a key hidden underneath. He quickly unlocked the heavy wooden door and pushed it open, revealing an interior of absolute blackness. "Go inside, Arthur. I'll check the perimeter." I hesitated. Leaving him alone felt dangerous, but sitting in the car was worse. I stepped into the cabin. The darkness was total, broken only by the weak light of the crescent moon filtering through the dirty windows. I heard Ethan moving quickly but quietly outside, checking the rear of the cabin and the shed. I fumbled for a light switch. There was none. Finally, I found a box of old matches and a kerosene lamp sitting on a dusty wooden table. With trembling fingers, I struck a match, and a soft yellow glow bloomed, pushing back the oppressive darkness. The cabin was sparse. A cot in the corner, a cast-iron stove, a few shelves stacked with canned goods, and a stone fireplace. It felt like stepping back 50 years, a perfect place to vanish. The sudden, small relief of having a secure roof over our heads was the emotional drop, the momentary feeling of safety that often precedes the next spike of danger. I rubbed my face, trying to clear the exhaustion, and went to the fireplace, preparing to build a small fire for warmth and comfort. Ethan returned, sliding the heavy bolt into place with a satisfying metallic thud. His breath was ragged. "It's clear," he reported. "No tracks but ours. The road is barely visible from the ridge." He sank onto the cot, covering his face with his hands. The sheer psychological weight of the last few hours was finally crashing down on him. "Good," I said, poking at the dry kindling. "You rest. We'll figure out a plan when the sun comes up. Right now, we need to hunker down and be quiet." For the next half hour, we operated in silence. The fire caught, chasing the chill from the small space. The flickering light cast long, dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls, making the room feel both cozy and deeply unsettling. We were safe for now. That's what I kept telling myself. The tension was at a low, nervous simmer, waiting for the next trigger. Then, just as the fire started to produce a steady heat, the true cold realization hit me. I'd been so focused on the road, on the pursuers, on getting here, that I missed the obvious, the critical flaw in our sudden sanctuary. I froze, the heavy iron poker clattering to the stone hearth. Ethan looked up, startled by the noise. "Arthur, what is it?" I walked slowly to the small, dusty window and pressed my face close to the glass, looking out into the utter blackness. My heart began to pound a frantic, heavy rhythm against my ribs. "The car, Ethan," I whispered, my voice thick with dread. "My car? What about it?" "It's sitting right there," I said, pointing out the window with a shaking hand. "It's parked 50 feet away, a sedan from the city, sitting in the middle of a private logging track, covered in mud. It screams 'run away' in a language everyone understands. They don't need to track us up the highway, son. They just need to track the car." The emotional intensity spiked violently. The feeling of absolute safety was an illusion, a cruel trick. My car, my faithful old workhorse, was now a massive flashing beacon pointing directly at our hiding spot. Ethan jumped up, his exhaustion instantly forgotten, replaced by a fresh wave of panic. He rushed to the window beside me. "You're right. We have to move it. We have to hide it somewhere." "Too late," I said, the terror solidifying into a block of ice in my stomach. The moment we drove up, we left tracks. The engine heat, the scent of the gas. They could find it with or without headlights. And just as the last of my grim realization settled in, a low sound drifted through the heavy bolted door, a sound that could only belong to one thing. It was the low, steady rumble of a high-powered engine far off, but distinctly heading up the same gravel track we had just traveled. It wasn't the sound of a passing pickup. It was the determined, heavy sound of a vehicle designed to traverse rough terrain, closing in. They hadn't followed the highway. They had anticipated the escape route and sent a hunter after us. The black sedan was just a distraction. They knew the woods. They knew the back roads. The hunter was here. The sound of the engine was growing louder, closer, grinding its way up the final rocky incline. It wasn't the slick sound of a sedan. This was something heavy, determined, built for the chase. We stared at each other in the dim, flickering light of the kerosene lamp, our faces pale with terror. Every sound from outside, a snapping twig, the engine's rising roar, was a hammer blow against the fragile walls of the cabin. The emotional trigger reached its absolute zenith. Panic and impending violence. "The back door! Is there a back door?" Ethan whispered frantically, his eyes darting around the small space. "No, just the windows," I replied, my voice a strained hush. I grabbed the iron poker from the hearth. It was a pathetic weapon against whatever was coming, but it was all I had. "Get under the cot, now, and be quiet." Ethan hesitated, fear and shame fighting on his face. "Arthur, I can't let you go," I hissed, shoving him toward the corner. He scrambled beneath the low cot, disappearing into the shadows. I stood rigid beside the fireplace, trying to merge with the rough stone wall, the poker held tight in my trembling hands. I didn't try to extinguish the lamp. I wanted them to see me, to focus on the old man, not the boy hiding in the corner. The engine noise cut out abruptly. The sudden silence was worse than the sound. It meant they were outside. They were waiting. They were planning. A long, agonizing minute passed. Then a voice, deep and heavily accented, cut through the night. "We know you are in there, Mr. Vance, and we know you are not alone. Send the old man out. This is not his fight." The emotional intensity was painful. They knew Ethan's name, and they had seen me. The black sedan had seen us. I walked to the bolted front door, placing myself squarely in the center of the light. "He's gone," I yelled back, projecting my voice to sound stronger than I felt. "I dropped him off hours ago. You got the wrong place." A harsh, humorless laugh answered me. "Arthur, do not insult our intelligence. We have your vehicle. The tracks lead only to this hut. We know you are lying." A metallic clang followed, and I knew they had found the iron bolt. "Come outside, Arthur, or we come in." My mind raced. If I opened the door, they would surely kill me and then find Ethan. If I didn't, they would shoot through the door, and the kerosene lamp was a beacon. I had to create a distraction, a single desperate chance. I took the box of matches and tossed them hard against the far stone wall. The sudden, sharp clatter made Ethan flinch under the cot. Then, with a prayer to a god I hadn't truly addressed in years, I grabbed the kerosene lamp, spun, and hurled it with all my might toward the front window. The glass shattered with a deafening crash, the noise amplified by the silence of the woods. The lamp exploded against the outer wall in a spray of liquid fire, briefly illuminating the clearing in a horrific orange burst. I saw them, two large figures, one with the scar, both clutching heavy, dark shapes that could only be weapons. They stumbled back, momentarily blinded and shocked by the sudden conflagration. It was less than a second, but it was enough. I threw the iron poker hard at the door, aiming at the bolt, and then flung myself onto the floor, rolling toward the shadow of the fireplace. Bang, bang, bang. Gunshots tore through the flimsy door, ripping splinters and wood pulp into the cabin. The bullets hit where I had been standing, one of them passing right through the oil-soaked cot where Ethan lay hidden. The scent of gunpowder instantly filled the cabin, thick and acrid. The emotional trigger had reached its terrifying, violent peak. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the shooting stopped. A new noise, faint but distinct, started up from outside. Not the roar of the engine, but a frantic, accented shouting. Then a new sound entirely, the high, insistent wail of police sirens echoing through the valley. They stopped short. The thugs knew the sound. They hadn't counted on police interference in this remote location. The shouting grew more urgent, and then I heard the heavy, running footsteps fading back toward the parked vehicle. The engine roared to life, a frantic, desperate sound now, and the heavy vehicle turned and began lumbering back down the gravel track, tires spinning in the mud. The sirens grew louder, closer, then finally pulled up to the clearing, their flashing blue and red lights cutting through the darkness and the fading embers of the kerosene fire. I lay on the floor, breathing heavily, the smell of cordite in my nostrils, the poker lying uselessly beside me. Ethan crawled out from under the cot, his face ashen, looking at the fresh bullet hole inches from where his head had been. How did the police know?" he stammered, his voice filled with shock. I slowly pulled myself up, leaning against the cold stone of the hearth. "I didn't call them, son. You did." I nodded at the wad of cash he had thrown onto the passenger seat earlier. When you handed me that money, I didn't push it back under the seat. I put it in the cup holder where I could reach it. When I was throwing the lamp, I also grabbed my work cell phone and hit the emergency button. I couldn't talk, but they tracked the GPS. The police came to the only place they could find a ping in these woods, this exact location. The emotional deceleration was swift, the fear giving way to exhausted, cold relief. An hour later, as the dawn started to break and the police were documenting the scene and the bullet holes, Ethan was being led away. He was handcuffed, not because of the thugs, but because of the vast sum of money he had been gambling and losing. He turned and looked at me, an expression of complex gratitude and sorrow on his face. "Thank you, Arthur," he mouthed silently. "I'm sorry." I simply nodded. I watched the police cars disappear down the winding track, taking the young man and his immense burden of guilt away. My car was totaled, the engine smoked, the windows broken, but I was alive. I spent the rest of the morning sitting by the silent, now cold fireplace, waiting for a ride. The sun finally cleared the ridge, bathing the small cabin in pale gold light. The terror was gone, but the memory of his scream, "Stop the car now!" and the trembling of my own hands remained. I learned later that Ethan Vance was charged, but his information led to a much bigger raid on the syndicate he had crossed. He made a deal. He'll spend time in prison, but he'll live. As for me, I bought a new sedan. But now, when a passenger rushes into my car late at night, I don't just look for their destination. I look for the fear in their eyes. Because sometimes the scariest route isn't the one on the map, but the one you're forced to take for a frightened stranger. And that, folks, is just one of the things you hear behind the wheel.